The United States has more immigrants than any country in the world. Although immigration has always played a vital role in the history and the making of the United States, from the colonial era to the California gold rush and Ellis Island, the country recently saw immigration slow down big time. Sometimes I wonder why. It was only 55 years ago that the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 passed, which removed the race and base immigration system that discriminated against non Western European groups. It's amazing. Today, immigrants here are mostly Latinos and Caribbean. Anyway, it just seemed that now there has been an attack against a lot of immigrants who doesn't have papers. Good evening. Welcome to a special edition of the International Grapevine. This is your host, Wallingford Lee. Tonight in the International Grapevine, we want to talk a little bit about immigration matters, the issues confronting America with the immigration situation. Before we get started, it's important to, in my mind, the really true American are only the Indians, and they're out in Oklahoma, as we know why they were pushed out in Oklahoma by whom. So in reality, this immigration things and that's going on today, it's very important and very, very sensitive. We know for a fact that the border has been a tremendous problem that goes way back. A lot of people tend to blame the previous administration. Let's be sensible. All of us are involved. And the truth of the matter is that the immigration situation in the border was disgusting. However, the new administration that we have right now have really clamped down on the border, and that's a good thing. You just cannot let the entire people come in as they feel like and stuff like that. Originally, we stated that they will only go after people who have criminal records and stuff like that. But based on what we have seen and heard from other people, ICE is picking up anyone and everyone that they can. So tonight on the International Grapevine, I want to talk about immigration matters, and we have a special guest with us, a person that knows about immigration matters. I'm talking about our attorney, who is Sally Attia, who has been kind enough to be our guest in the program. I want to take this opportunity to ask her a few questions about immigration, the pros and cons about it. Welcome to our program once again.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah. Well, good. I want to talk a little bit about the immigration thing. I was concerned of everything that's going on. Make no mistake about it. We have to clean up the area. You can't have people killing women and raping women and doing all kind of crazy stuff like that. So definitely they should be picked up and deported. But there are other things in that going on behind, that we'll probably get around to talk about it. The previous administration was not able to control the border properly, and things got grossly out of control. People crossing the border and stuff like that. What's your thought process on something like that with everything that happened in the border and what is happening right now?
So, Mr. Lee, I'm going to challenge you a little bit.
Sure, I
Because
want you to.
I don't know that the previous administration handled it any worse than any other administration. Um, if you recall, there was a caravan that came during President Trump's first term in office. That had never happened prior to that. If you recall, at the end of President Trump's administration the first time around, there was a severe border crisis, and it was inherited by President Biden. This border crisis has existed for a very long time. Um, the Biden administration tried a new system where they were having people register online prior to coming to the border to come in and seek an asylum, and it seemed to be working. There were less illegal border crossings when that took place. However, as soon as President Trump took office again, he shut that down. So that crisis is back to levels that it was during the pre Trump era, the last Trump era, the Biden era, and now again. And so I don't know. And maybe if I've given more time, I could probably research the statistics for you and tell you approximately how many people have come in through the borders without being documented or being inspected. But I don't have those numbers now. But I dare say that you can't say it's the prior administration's fault.
Because I stand corrected, and rightfully so. This situation with the border goes way, way back, and that's the truth of the matter. Um, I think you know by now, politics is a weird game. People always blame the other person, and anything that happened is not my fault, is the other person, and that's exactly what's happening right now, and that's the truth of the matter. Having said that, again, I thank you that you correct me about that. But the border situation has been going on for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And I think there was a period of time that I think Biden tried to put some type of control on it, and it wasn't done. And I think a lot of them are just jumping on that. But how do you feel about the border situation now with the new administration that we have? Is it different? Is it better?
No, it's not better. Um, with President Trump's executive order to stop the phone system of scheduling asylum credible fear interviews at the border, suddenly people who had been in line, quote unquote, for about 8 months lost their appointments. These are people who'd been sitting at the border and waited forever and ever to be seen, and suddenly they didn't have appointments. So these people who are at the border who are seeking entry because they are seeking to be safe from harm from their countries where they can't find anywhere else to be safe. That's what asylum is for, are now the subject of harm at the border. And it's very sad for a lot of people. Um, Now, what is happening is as people try to cross illegally, there's more border security now than there has ever been. Um, the federal government is more involved, and they've authorized the state government to participate. And so there's a lot more enforcement officials out there. But I also think there's a lot more people trying to come across.
Um, I would say that you're right in tone. The border situation obviously is something very serious. And again, as I mentioned it to you, and you said it to me, all right, and corrected me, it goes way back. It goes way, way, way back. I think what is happening right now, they looked at the border as an epidemic situation, and they're deporting left and right and stuff like that. Of course, if someone is a criminal, they should be deported. If someone is a rapist, they should be deported. If someone is one that's going to hold up banks and sticking up people and stuff like that, yes, they should be deported. However, if they've been here for years and they're trying to get their papers fixed, one, how do you go about getting their papers fixed? What is the process? And how they should handle the situation. I listen on TV, and some of the things that I hear on TV I don't like, but I won't give my opinion. If someone is trying to fix their papers, and let's say for argument's sake they've been here maybe 10 years, but they don't have a green card, what is the process? Do they still have an opportunity if they have a clean record, if they're not a criminal? What there is for them, is there any possibility that they could get a temporary green card or a permanent green card? What is the process in a situation like that?
So it's very, very case specific. It depends on how you entered the country, when you entered the country. Have you ever previously applied for any immigration benefits before? Have you ever been deported before? Have you ever Are you married? Are you married to a U.S. citizen or a resident? Are your parents here? Are they residents? Are they citizens? Do you have children here? Are they minors? Are they adults? Are they U.S. citizens or residents? All of these questions matter. Have you ever been arrested? Have you ever been placed in removal proceedings? There is a million questions I would have to ask before I could answer that.
As we continue talking about the various immigration situation, obviously it's a very sensitive matter, big way. It just seemed, and the newspapers are right about that, that the immigration situation seemed to be more of an attack and people from the Caribbean more than people that came from Europe. And some of them are still here illegal, and some of them still get married and stuff like that. And everybody looked the other side. So I'm not that dumb that I don't know that, but I wish that they would be man enough to it. If someone is here, like I said, maybe let's say 5 years, no, 10 years, and they're working, they haven't broken any law, but they came in here with a passport from whatever country they came from, and they're here illegal. What is the process if they want to uh, get a green card, or do they want to marry a person they just met who is a citizen? How does that work, and what is the process in both situations like that?
So if you entered the US legally, meaning you
Yes.
entered the visa to the US and you decide to marry a US citizen for love, not for papers, um, we can actually adjust your status. So we can definitely file for you and apply for your work permit and apply for your green card, and you should be able to get them.
Okay. Okay. So that sounds doable. Now, if you have a child or you have children, um, and they're going to school, but again, you're not here legally, but your children were born here in the United States, what is their status? The reason I ask that, I hear on the radio, in some cases, some folks says, well, maybe the kids should be deported because their parents are not American citizens. That doesn't sound right. I know for many years that if a child was born here, he's born in America, so he's an American child. But I hear things on the radio, I hear things on TV. What is the process for these young children in a case like that? They were born here.
So this was something that Trump tried to do. I think maybe within his first 2 days in office, he signed an executive order canceling birthright citizenship. So, what's birthright citizenship? In the Constitution, it says if you are born in the US, you are automatically a US citizen, regardless of where your parents are from, regardless of whether your parents were here legally or not when you were born. And that is in the Constitution. Trump tried to cancel it, and it went to court immediately. And the courts have held that Trump cannot cancel it. This is a constitutional right. And so anybody born in the US is a US citizen and cannot be deported.
So if they were born here, they are American citizens. Okay.
Yes.
There's another thing I read in the paper that a group named ICE, I don't know what they're, but they are going into schools and intimidating kids and stuff like that. Can that possibly be taking place? I don't think it should if the children are going to school, and especially if they were born here. What is the logic on something like that?
So ICE is Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. They are the hand of the immigration office that goes and picks up people to deport them. Um, Historically, they have not been allowed to go to schools. Um, and in sanctuary cities, they had not definitely been allowed to go to schools. However, in recent times, in the last month or so, they have been going to schools, and mayors of sanctuary cities have been allowing them to go and been leaving it up to the individual school to deal with the ICE agents. Um, I guess the logic behind picking up the kids is it's an easier way to catch their parents. They're bait, essentially. Um, I think that's a terrible thing to do to children. And it makes people not want their kids to go to school. It makes children not want to go to school. It makes US citizen children that are in school afraid for their friends. Um, I think it's a terrible policy, but it's definitely probably an effective way to catch their parents.
Wow. How widespread is the illegal immigration situation in this nation today?
11 million undocumented individuals in the US. It's substantial. The courts have over 750 cases per court. I mean, the numbers of deportation cases that exist is enormous. So there are only 750 judges at the moment, and this is the most we've ever had. And there are over 2 million open removal cases pending. It's unbelievably substantial.
Wow. Wow. How has the media, when I say the media, I think about newspapers and television, how has they presented the immigration situation? How have they presented the situation with the children? As you mentioned, a lot of kids are afraid to go to school because of everything that's taking place and stuff like that. One part of it, obviously, this these people want people out of here, one way or the other. How has the press, newspaper, and television presented the immigration situation to the best of your knowledge or understanding?
So I like to look at the different newspapers or news providers because they're so extremely biased on both sides. Uh, on all sides, there are multiple sides. Um, you know, and I would urge everybody to watch Fox and then watch CBS and watch and MSNBC and watch the different outlets because they're going to give you a completely different perspective on the very same thing. And it makes you wonder where the truth actually lies. Um, and, in criminal defense, we say there are always three sides to the story: his side, her side, and the truth. And, you know, it's a good question. I don't know that either side is portraying it fully and completely.
As we stand today, with all the changes and all the things I'm going about, and it just seemed like it's a catchphrase. Who can legally be deported today from the United States and how?
Oof. Okay. So, to be deported from the United States, it depends. Again, this is a big question that has many possible variables and answers.
Agree?
It depends on how you entered the US. It depends on whether you've been previously removed or not. It depends on whether you have a criminal record or not. It depends on whether you're willing to sit in a detention facility until a judge has time to hear your case once you're picked up or not. It's such a huge variable. But in theory, the theory is people who should be expeditiously removed are those who have criminal records and no waiver possibilities and no other options to remain here legally. But a lot of people, if you've just been arrested, I mean, there's There's now, since January, a new act that came out. Just being accused and you're undocumented means you're facing mandatory detention. So, your neighbor can accuse you of something, you get arrested, ICE picks you up, and then you're not even eligible for bail from an immigration judge until your case is over. And based on the number of cases there are, you might be sitting in detention for 6 to 8 months, maybe longer. And if you're a truly innocent person, are you going to be able to survive being locked up in probably not the best conditions for that long to fight your case?
Like I said, right now it seems like it's the going thing. That's all you read in the papers, and and as a citizen or as a person or a permanent resident, you don't know really what side it is. The message is such mixture that it obviously is terrorizing people who are here illegally, in some cases, and it's terrorizing the children, as you just mentioned, also, who have to go out of school, and you wonder how far this is going to go. Where does it stop, or where does they meet and say, you know what, we'll clean up the border and we'll continue to clean up the border. What are we going to do with the other people here? Okay, they don't have a record. They've been working for a while. Some of them even pay taxes. How do we treat them? How do we go about something like that? What is the answer? I mean, it's very complicated in more ways than one. And you, as an attorney, I know I'm asking too many questions, but my audience need to hear these things. They need to know where to go. They need to know what are their rights, if there are any rights for them. They need to know, are they safe to look through the window and stuff like that? What is the answer to these things right now as we look at them from different angles?
So we're gonna talk about two of the main things you just said. One, I'd like to talk about the history. So what can be done if we look historically? This is an age-old question in the U.S. In the 80s, there was an amnesty. In 2001, there was an amnesty. Bill Clinton did it. In 2012, there was, it wasn't quite an amnesty, but a waiver process was put in place by Obama to help legalize a certain group of people. And perhaps it's time for another type of waiver or amnesty to come into play for these people. I don't anticipate that this administration would push for it or move it forward because that wasn't their platform. The platform was mass deportations, and that's what they're trying to accomplish. So, solution is probably another type of amnesty for those people who've been here, although illegally, doing all the right thing, paying their taxes, working, staying out of trouble, raising their kids. There should be something, that's my opinion, that goes into place. That's not likely to happen in this administration's term. Now, the other issue that you mentioned, what can people do? And this is a big one, and it's a really important one. One, know that you do not have to open your door when an agent or a police officer comes knocking unless they have a warrant. And that warrant needs to be signed by a judge. And the type of warrant matters. An arrest warrant, for example, in New York, does not give the police authority to enter your home. It does not, I'm going to repeat it, an arrest warrant does not give them permission to enter your home. You have to let them in. So if you don't open the door, they're not allowed in. There are exceptions, obviously, exceptional circumstances when they hear an emergency taking place inside, they may enter by force, but that's a big exception. So, first, don't open the door. Second, ask to see the warrant. Third, Take a picture of the warrant and send it to your attorney to see if it's a valid warrant that requires them to open the door or not. Those are really big things. Now, in an office setting, they're not allowed to come into places that the public are not allowed to come into without permission. It's just like a home. So if you have a waiting area outside your office, they can go there. But if you've got a locked door, you have to buzz them in. You don't have to buzz them in. And that's in an office. Now, in New York, which used to be a sanctuary city, but it seems like it may not be anymore, the mayor recently said in government offices, the officials working in the government offices are to cooperate with ICE agents, meaning let them come in the back and do whatever they need to do. So I don't know what that means for schools in New York City. The chancellor hasn't said anything about it yet. They're leaving it up to the schools to decide what they're going to do. Um, so that's if they come to your home. Now, if you come across them out in public, go into somewhere private if you're not being detained. You have the right to ask if you're being detained, and if you're not being detained,
Hmm.
go away. Go somewhere private where they're not allowed to come in.
Hmm.
Um, do not obstruct them. Do not get in their way. Do not stop them. Do not be a vigilante, because that's obstruction of justice and could land you in jail. Um, Now, what are you required to provide? So, if you're a resident or have a work permit in the US, you're supposed to carry proof of your status, of your valid status on you here. In New York, if a police officer stops you for any reason, they have the right to detain you until they identify you. So, you give them your name and your date of birth and possibly your address, but that's where it stops. You do not tell anybody where you're a national of or what your citizenship is. If you have valid status, you show them your green card, you show them your work permit. If you have a court date coming up, as long as you haven't violated the terms of your release, then you're okay. Um, if you have no status, I don't recommend that you walk around with your foreign identity documents, because to deport you, they have to identify where you're a national of and get travel documents for you. And if you're carrying them with you, you're making it very easy for them to put you on a plane and ship you out.
So let's be clear. They stop. The first thing they start with: are you a citizen or you're a permanent resident? If
You
you have a
don't,
driver, I'm sorry.
you,
If you have a driver's license, do you have to show it to them and stuff like that?
so yes, in New York, they have the right to identify you. They need to be able to identify you. Um, that's an absolute right of the police. They can detain you until they've identified you. And that's a security measure because they want to know that the person they've stopped doesn't have a warrant, for example. So they run your ID and make sure that
That you're
you're not,
clean.
yes. So it's a safety issue in New York that's been around forever. Um, don't. If you're not a US citizen or a resident, don't tell them that. You don't have to answer that question.
Let's go back for 1 second and I'll come back to this. Let's talk about DACA. DACA was something that Obama made up, and rightfully so, because the same type of nonsense that was going on, kids them that were born here, or their parents came and brought them when they were 2 or 3 years old, and stuff like that. And Obama tried to work with Congress and stuff like that, and it went nowhere. So he invented DACA. Where do we stand today in DACA? I heard through the grapevine, I'm not sure, that it's non existent. So I'm trying to find out, does DACA exist? Does it still work?
So DACA is still in place. However, they're not accepting new applicants. So if you already have DACA, you're good for now. If you fail to apply before they stopped new applications, you're no longer eligible for DACA. This has been something that's been fought for the last, I would say, 8 years now. Trump tried to cancel it, Biden reinstated it. Trump is now trying to cancel it again. So for now, though, DACA's still in place, but not for new applicants. So if you have DACA, make sure you continue to renew it and you're in status for now.
Can they deport a United States citizen, and under what type of condition can he be deported? Because those things
So,
come up in the newspapers also, and also on TV sometimes.
so a naturalized citizen, meaning somebody who was not born in the US,
Hmm.
their citizenship can be revoked under specific conditions. Usually they're national security conditions. So if somebody is discovered to be part of a terrorist cell, then their naturalized citizen status can be revoked. If you were born here, as of right now, the law still stands that you cannot have your citizenship revoked. But if you're a naturalized citizen, which means you came in, you got your green card, you got your citizenship, or you came in as a child, or you were born to a US citizen outside and you became a citizen thereafter, possibly it can be revoked. But it's very specific. It's there are only five very limited categories where they can revoke citizenship.
Interesting. Do you see this type of aggressive behavior by ICE to continue? Because originally it was stated is only to pick up criminal people who are here illegally, but based on the newspapers, it's beyond picking up criminal people and stuff like that. It's if a woman is walking around, they just stop her and start asking these questions. I guess they have a right to ask these questions, but
And you have the right to not answer them. Just
oh,
remember,
okay. So they don't have to respond to it then.
that's
In-
correct. Do
Okay.
not answer these questions.
Okay. Now there are some other words out there that some of the people that were arrested, they have been shipped to Colombia. They have been shipped to different places and stuff like that. And I guess rightfully so. If they broke the law, if they rape, if they kill, if they maim, I understand it, and I agree with that 100%. What I don't understand is things that show up on TV or in newspapers seem like they're just twisting all kind of different things in different terms. So I just want to make sure that people have, as a clean person, you have certain right. Let's talk a little bit because we're running out of time. We know for a fact that a lot of people came here and work in the farms, where is agriculture, orange, um, apple and stuff like that. The people that does that job, are they still going out there and picking up those people? And if they pick up those people, who in the name of God is going to do that type of job?
I think that's kind of a rhetorical question, isn't it? So I would say there are actually people who are given permits to come in on a daily basis from
Okay.
Mexico to go to the farms and do that work legally, or seasonally given visas to come in and do that work. But those people are being paid fair wages. The
Okay.
majority of the people who are doing the work that are not here legally are not being paid fair wages. And that's why your fruits and vegetables cost what they cost. And so, yes, your fruits and vegetables are going to get a lot more expensive. That's what's going to happen.
Well, unfortunately, we've kind of run a little bit out of time. I think we might have to do a part two because I have so many things in my mind because I see some of the things in the newspaper. on TV, and it's scary. Honestly, all joke aside, I have a tremendous sense of humor, but one thing I don't like is abuse. I see a certain amount of abuse and people doing things that should not be doing. So I want to take the opportunity on behalf of the family of the Grapevine to thank you for being my special guest and for answering these tough questions and sensitive questions. I don't have words for thank you to do the job that you've done. I really truly appreciate it, honestly.
My pleasure. I hope people have learned something, and I hope things get better. I'd like to tell people not to stress and not to worry, but unfortunately, not in these times. Things are not wonderful.
Not at all. They're not wonderful, and we don't know where it's going. That's the most dangerous part of it. We have no idea where it's going. And
But
again, thank you so much for being my special guest. And I hope you give us the opportunity to work with you again because you are dynamic and you tell it like it is. And that's important to us and to my audience also.
thank you.
And again, this is Wallingford Lee saying goodnight for International Grapevine. We just did a sensitive program about immigration and the things that have taken place and the abuse of authority in some cases. So we just hope that things are handled in a different manner, in a professional manner, and giving people the opportunity to explain themselves when they get stopped. Again, thanks for watching our program. We hope to see you next week at the same time at the same place. Good night.